once again, my name is Dan Alborn. Along with me today, Jacci Conkle, and you're listening to the Appleton REIA podcast. And today we're going to drop some knowledge bombs on you, Jacci, of helping people understand the importance of the do's and don'ts of real estate, right?
Right. I mean, the top 5 must-haves are the top 5 must-haves.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about if you're starting a real estate business, there are really 5 main things that Jacci and I have kind of broke down that we see over and over again with whoever's starting a business. If you have these 5 things, this can lead to a very successful career in real estate. And we'll have some bonus stuff in there for you as well. So let's get right after it today of what are the top 5 things. We're going to work backwards from 5 to 1. We'd rank this probably in, the most important things that you probably would need to have. So number 5, I would say is you have to know your strategy. And what does that mean, strategy? If you're brand new into real estate, I guess help bring a little knowledge to the people, Jacci. When we say strategy, what does that mean?
Well, real estate investing really involves a lot of different things, right? I mean, we have people who own big apartment buildings all the way down to single families. We have, the flippers with the rehabs and the wholesales. We have people that have commercial properties. So
Right.
Real estate investing really has a huge scope. So where do you fall on that line? And we're going to focus on people who have residential rentals and or they are rehabbers or wholesalers, or maybe people who have a combination of both, like
Right.
we do.
Absolutely. And one of the things that we find as real estate investors, I know I've fallen into this pit too, is that there is a plethora of education out there that is offered. And a lot of times you'll see a webinar that comes in your inbox or something, and you can get very distracted on the latest and greatest strategy or here's the new technique. And some of that stuff is good, but a lot of it can just take you away from your focus.
Yeah.
And if you have a core strategy, like, my main goal is I'm going to do rehabbing and wholesaling. If it's taking you away from that and you've not mastered rehab and wholesaling, it may be a great strategy, but it's just not the right timing for you. If someone's like, well, now you can do lease options. Well, that's great, but that's a whole new business all into itself. So the important thing is to know your strategy, get proficient with it, and then maybe look to diversify, right? And adding some more tools to the tool belt. But if you don't know this out of the gates, Jacci, you're going to be like a ship without a rudder, right?
Absolutely. And that's part of the problem is a lot of people just go and they get started, they get excited, but then they never really lay the groundwork and they get kind of lost in all the bigger details that aren't even necessary. So, we'll get to that.
Absolutely. All right, so that's number 5 is knowing your strategy. Number 4.
Business name. What are you going to call yourself?
Right?
Or maybe you're just buying rentals and you're going to go for the cash flow and the returns. You might not really need a business name. Don't get so wound up in it. It's not a big deal. Talk to an attorney, see what
That's huge.
the risk is.
And your accountant too. Maybe there might be some
Absolutely.
advantages of having different entities for the different things that you're doing. But those are 2 people you may want to discuss at this point when you're looking to figure out what is your business name if you even need one.
Yeah, because especially if you're in rentals, there's really no big deal of doing that in your personal name and just having really good insurance. Make sure you have a quality
Right.
insurance agent. Again, I'm not an attorney. I don't play one on TV. I do suggest that you talk to one, but I think you'll find that they'll be able to debunk a lot of the stuff too about how you have to have an LLC and how it actually doesn't really protect you very much. So it's good to get that information. But hey, maybe you're going to be doing, some flipping,
Yeah.
rehabbing, wholesaling. Maybe you want to have a business name so that your marketing is more professional. So what about that?
Right. And I think asking the right questions on the front end will save you from a lot of just confusion, because sometimes people get very wrapped up and they're like, oh, I got to do an LLC. How do you do that? How do I set it up? And it can really just drive you bonkers. You've not even done a deal yet. Whereas if you talk to an accountant and an attorney real quickly, they can be like, this is what you need. This is what you don't need. And if you do an LLC, it's very, very easy to do. You can do it yourself, or you can pay someone like LegalZoom to set it up if you're not proficient in that area, or your attorney can even draft the docs. But it's something very low cost and can be done almost exclusively through the internet between that and getting your federal stuff put together.
And just keep in mind, if you're setting up an LLC, don't fool yourself into thinking you're doing it for tax reasons. Don't fool yourself into thinking it's going to completely protect you if anything happens on your properties, because neither of those are true. And it is a pass-through for taxes. So again, talk to an accountant about that. One of my big things is choosing a name. If you're going to choose a business name, don't do what I did. Watch what I do and do differently, because I didn't know any better, had no guidance, and my last name is Conkle. My husband and I decided we would call our company Conkle Investments. It's absolutely unsaleable unless somebody with the last name Conkle would ever want to buy our business.
Right? You never know.
Oh, my goodness. So come up with something a lot better than that. Don't use your name unless you don't ever intend to even think about selling your business, because it's really difficult to sell something that's personalized like that.
Yeah, and a lot of people use like an acronym, maybe some initials, or maybe there's a
better
word that really resonates with you and what you're doing. There's a lot of things to that. Don't overthink it, really. I mean, I know a lot of times we've dealt with students that they spend hours of just really, what is the name going to have? Now, the other aspect when looking up a name is you want to see, are there other businesses we're in Wisconsin, but is there another real estate investment company called X that you want to do that? So you want to do a little bit of research, too, to figure out, is the name even available?
Yeah, make sure it's not out there yet.
Yeah, you don't want to order all your marketing materials and be like, hey, we're going with XYZ Investments. And before you know it, there's 3 other businesses that are close to that, or someone else has the exact same name. And now you're like, oh, great, now what?
Yeah, now you can't even buy that LLC. So you can just Google whatever state you're in. Here we're in Wisconsin. I always just Google Wisconsin LLC lookup, and it'll bring you right to the DFI link that you can click on, and you can do a search for any name, and it'll tell you if it's already taken. Super easy.
Right.
So one of the big things, Dan, that the gurus that come to town, unfortunately, are duping our people into spending, $5,000 doing is something called a Nevada corporation. Or like you were saying earlier in our conversation, there's a lot of different states, but the Nevada corporation is the biggest one. And they tell you how that's really going to protect you and it saves you from taxes, and it's all these crazy layers of junk. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think I think the big thing is it's not necessary. And what you find with this podcast is, I think Jackie and I try to debunk a lot of the guru-isms that are out there. It sells courses. It sounds fancy and fine, but when you strip it back to what it does and what they're trying to educate you on, a lot of it's busy work. And this is exactly what it is. And a lot of times what happens is these gurus have ties into the companies that set up these LLCs. So guess what, Jackie?
They just made $5,000.
Yeah, they get a kickback, right?
Setting up a pointless corporation. Ain't going to do
dumb.
nothing for you.
Just dumb.
Now,
of course, once you have your business name from there, you can use that to set up a bank account, which would be important, if you're going to be doing some transactions. But keep in mind, like Jackie just said, and again, we're not lawyers or accountants. We have stayed at a Holiday Inn Express a few times in our lives, but for the most part, it will be nice just to have that as an entity. If someone's writing a check to XYZ Investments, you want to be able to cash it, right? So having a bank account that would have that name, or you could use a DBA, doing business as, is another way that you could set up your business. Again, talk to the appropriate people to figure that out. So that takes us now to our next, this is number 3 of 5 things, the 5 must-haves you should have implemented to have a successful real estate business, and that is marketing, right? You got to be marketing that. You're not a real estate investor, you're a marketer, right, Jackie?
Absolutely. We're always a marketer first. And so having that set up ahead of time, you can't really move forward without having it, right? So you have to figure out what are your strategies. We like to have at least 3 to 5 strategies at any given time, whether that be bandit signs. And again, it depends on what you're doing. If you're just doing rentals, your strategy might be looking to buy properties from wholesalers, or you might be actually marketing, trying to find really good deals for yourself. Or maybe you're just out there working with a realtor. That's different. If you're out there looking for properties to go ahead and flip, whether you're rehabbing or wholesaling, you're going to need to have different marketing strategies out there. And you know what that means, Dan? It's a real business.
Well, it is a business.
What do you need?
Absolutely. And a lot of these people that tell you it's like a hobby or you can do it for 3 to 4 hours a week. Yes, we know people in this business that can do that, but it's because they've put in the sweat equity on the front end to build a business, automate it, have people and systems in place to be able to do it. Again, if you think this is a hobby and something you're going to do for 3 to 4 hours a week and make checks,
or something you can do for totally free with no money out of your pocket at all. It's just not realistic.
And that's
it's a real business.
Yeah, well, think about this. The gurus are going to charge you anywhere from $5,000 on the low end up to $15,000 to $20,000 to be part of their exclusive, one-on-one coaching. But then on top of that, you're going to need money each month. To run a business, there's expenses. At a bare minimum, you're going to need office supplies. You're going to need paper. You're going to need ink. You're going to need envelopes. Oh, by the way, direct mail is also something that's a strategy. Postage costs money. So a lot of these things is you're going to have money in order to run your business. So to think that you can do this for all cheap and free, yes, trust me, Jackie and I know of a lot of strategies you can do that. But at the end of the day, for most people, you're going to have some money to put into the business to get started and to get some of these marketing strategies going. And the other reason why marketing is an important piece is that it's the market that we're in right now.
Oh, yeah.
Inventory's low. There's not a lot of low-hanging fruit. So you have to kind of go out and get your name out there to let people know who you are and what you do.
Got to plant some seeds to find the harvest.
Yeah.
The apples aren't just falling off the tree. You got to kind of shake the tree a little bit to get them down right now, and that'll change. But yeah, and then you need marketing materials like a business card. I mean,
it's number 2, marketing materials.
Absolutely. At a bottom need, you got to have at least a phone number, right? So
Right.
When we're talking about the top 5 things you absolutely have to get your business off the ground, I'm going to say a phone number is really important. And again, here's where we failed in the beginning because we didn't have this guidance. We just went ahead and used my cell phone number. And to this day, that's our business number. It's out there. It's everywhere. I can't do really a whole lot about that. But what I would suggest, and I know Dan suggests too, is get a Google Voice.
Right.
That way you can transfer that number to any other number at any given time. So maybe you have an answering service from this hour to that hour, and then you take the calls live yourself. Or maybe you just want it to go to voicemail during certain hours. Whatever it is, you can do that with a Google Voice number. And it's not just a personal phone that you can't really do a whole lot with. Google Voice is just really, really easy to work with. It even transcribes, not transforms.
Yeah.
Your voicemails.
It does transform into letters and words.
It transcribes it all into text, that you can go ahead and get into an email. So you immediately have that voicemail that you can read, which is pretty cool.
Right.
But
and that is a free service too. So I mean, obviously that is an item that is free. There are other services that can be more robust that do cost some money, but at a bare minimum, you can get that. And the other thing too is you want to at least have your business cards. I mean, if you're talking to someone and saying, "Hey, I'm a real estate investor," oh, great. Well, what if I have a house? You want to give them something other than a scratched piece of paper, and you want a little bit of professionalism. So having a business card does kind of give you a little bit of that status. Say, listen, I'm doing this legit. This is who I am and what I'm doing. So, and that's a low cost item that you can pick up a box of, $500 for $30 or something like that. If they got a sale through Vistaprint or something like that, there's a lot of ways you can get that material too. And then there's other materials too that you can buy. But not necessarily that you truly need. But there's other marketing materials you're going to have just to get yourself out there. Now, I know one of the things that sometimes people kind of stress out a little bit too, Jackie, is having an address. I mean, should I put my address on my business cards, or my marketing material?
Yeah, and I don't know that it necessarily matters. I mean, I use my personal address for, different things in my business, but, nobody ever comes here thinking that they're going to get to my business. It's pretty obvious that it's my name. But as far as like a return address and things like that, don't get bent out of shape about it. It doesn't matter what address you use or if you have a P.O. box. In the beginning, you don't need to spend the extra money on a P.O. box. It just doesn't really matter. The same with a website. Is a website nice to have? Does it help you? Does it promote you? Is it somewhere to send people? Absolutely. But when you're just getting started, don't let it stop you from getting out there and getting started. Same with the logo. Maybe you want to create a logo for your business right away, maybe not. And if you did, great. If you didn't, but you did it later, it's not going to stop your business. There's obviously other things that we can order too, right, Dan?
Absolutely.
If we're getting out there right away.
There's tons of marketing materials. I mean, like I said, we always say 3 to 5, but you could have 7 to 10. And people that are really humming along on this and doing multiple deals, they'll clearly tell you they have many different marketing channels going consistently out to people through, direct mail, internet, networking, things like that. So ultimately, as we kind of recap, we have our number one thing we're going to get to here in a mere moment. But just to kind of recap the top 5 that we've done to this point. So number 5 is just knowing your strategy, right? Knowing what you're going to do, having some compass in your investment world. Second is just setting up your business entity, knowing your name, what to do, how to set it up, talking to the appropriate people to figure that out. Number 3 is your marketing strategy. Make sure that you're running this as a business, not as a hobby, having proper marketing techniques and programs in place. And then number 2 is having the materials that we just talked about. What's essential, what's not. So now let's talk about, before we jump into number 1, Jackie, the top 5 things you do not need.
That every guru starts you out with.
So these are the top 5 things that you do not need in order to get started in real estate. What's number? I don't know if these are in any order.
They're not in order. My number 1 is my biggest pet peeve is every guru tells everybody they need to build their power team. And so they leave these trainings and they start calling every realtor in the book. They're calling the title companies and make sure they're lining that up. And, whether it's an accountant and an attorney, I can agree that to some degree you want to talk to them up front, but you don't need to line them up for your deals. The finding your buyers ahead of time, so they're lining up this power team and they haven't even decided what marketing strategy they're going to use yet.
Right.
They don't even have any business, not even sure where they're directed, but they're trying to line people up that they might need later.
But that sure can make you busy, right? That can be a lot of phone calls and a lot of meetings and coffees and lunches and things like that you're just talking to people and they're kind of looking at you like, why are we meeting? You don't have any business to discuss. It's great that you're wanting to get into this, but until you have something, don't call
me. You don't
me.
need a title company.
Right, yeah, exactly.
You don't need a lender
They'll
yet.
be nice to you, but it's like they're not really going to build that rapport. But once you have something, then that's when really these relationships form. So you're absolutely right, Jackie. That's almost always, that's like the number 1 step they tell you to do is you get started in real estate. Build that power team. Scratch that off the list. Matter of fact, if you have someone teaching you that, you might want to run the other way, right? Because a lot of the other stuff's going to be busy work as well. The other item is that I need a lot of money to get it. Now I know this sounds kind of like we're
counterintuitive to what we just said.
So you don't need a ton of money to buy the properties. You do need money to operate your business. So there's a difference there, right, Jackie?
Yeah, and a lot of people think, well, I can't get out there and make offers because I have no idea how I'll fund the deal. And I will promise you this, and you've probably heard us say this before if you've listened to any other podcasts, if you have a deal, the definition of a deal, right? It's an actual deal, not what you're calling a deal. If you have a deal, the money will come because there's no way that you could put that in front of, heck, call me, call Dan, we'll buy it. If it's a deal, you don't need the money. We'll come in and buy it and we'll pay you a wholesale fee and you can walk away with money in your pocket. You don't need the money, you need the deal. Once you have a deal, the money will come. And I promise you, it comes very easily as long as a deal is a deal.
Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of ties into another item that a lot of the gurus tell you. And again, this is such busy work. And again, most people will be polite and talk to you, but they're not really going to become good networking partners until you have a deal. But it's finding your buyers first. They're going to have you do all this marketing, put this ghost ad out there saying you have this property that you really don't have, to have people to call you and then lie to them.
Yeah.
It's just backwards. I've never liked that strategy, but it's being taught by a lot of people today. You do not need to have your buyers first because, much like the money, the people will come. If you get a deal, your buyers, that's how I've built my buyer pool for the last 10 years almost in regards to I get a deal.
Knocking down your door.
Right. You can only sell the property to how many people? One person. And if it's a true deal like Jackie was talking about, you're going to have multiple people who will want that and say, well, listen, I can't get you this one, but with what I'm doing, I'm going to have more coming. So the next time I get one, I'll make sure let me get your information. Boom. Now you've added a buyer to your buyers list. If you don't truly have a property, it's just, I don't like the whole idea of going about the other way. So again, it's more busy work. Find the deal first. The money will come, and it just saves you. Why don't you go out and find someone who wants to sell before the people that are going to buy it from you?
Yeah, the sellers are harder to find than the buyers.
Oh,
you do all your work to find the sellers, and the buyers will show up once you have a good deal with those sellers. Dan, I can tell every time a guru's been in town and done what they call their training, because I'll get 20 phone calls in the next 3 days following, and it's some newbie who, and nothing against newbies, we're all newbies at some point, but you can tell they're all nervous on the phone, and they're asking you, hi, I found your name online, and it looks like you flip properties. If I had something, would you be interested? And then they try to ask you, how many bedrooms do you buy? And it's like, oh my gosh, just bring me a deal.
Here's the deal: is this busy work is exactly that. And as a guru, they can make you seem like, well, you're working in the business, right? You're doing real estate related stuff. But the problem is, it just frustrates you because you're doing a lot of things, you're not getting deals, and you're banging your head against a wall. Where if you would be doing some of these other things right out of the gates, you can get quicker to cash. That's the real thing. Instead of trying to build this power team for the first 3-4 weeks of your training that they offer, it's just backwards. It's just backward.
join us at a REIA meeting.
Yeah.
And you would meet everybody you need to know. Your power team is already there.
That's
and
true.
you could network with every buyer there needs to be. And not to mention the money.
Done.
It's
Done
all
and
in
done.
one room.
Absolutely.
So there you go. Skip to end.
Yeah. So the other thing
Oh,
too
my
is having an infrastructure. You know, a lot of these programs
thing
and
we don't
gurus will tell you, well, you need to have a website, and yeah, that's important and can be helpful. Or you need to have your back office. You need to have a CRM. You need to do all these other things. And quite honestly, that is just again, if you don't have leads and deals, you don't need that. Early on, a lot of this can be done simply with a spreadsheet through Google. You can manage it through your calendar. As deal flow continues and you get more of it, well, maybe it is important that you have some of these things. But early on, at a bare minimum, you don't need to have all this stuff kind of in place. And I think that kind of ties us into the last item, which is really that you know it all. And that alone can be the fear factor of why you won't even do a deal.
It is. You don't need to know it all. You need to know just a very little bit to be able to get started. Network with others, just start making calls, seeing properties, even if it's just learning your market and getting out and going to open houses and things like that.
Yeah.
That'll start. There's nothing like the OJT, the on-the-job training. Just getting out there, looking at properties. You might just end up bumping into something as you're looking at an open house here. Maybe 2 doors down, you see a property that has some deferred maintenance, and there's a neighbor standing outside. You could ask about it. Just get out there and start doing the work. Don't just sit and listening to trainings and watching videos and jumping on webinars.
Right.
And 5 different webinars give you 5 different strategies, and now you're just stuck.
Yeah.
You don't need to know it all, and you don't need to be setting up all kinds of systems. Systems are great, but you don't need them all before you get started. So just do it. Just get out and do it.
Agreed. All right, so that leads us to our number one thing you need to be successful in real estate, and it goes to really having the time and a plan.
The most overlooked.
Yeah, it is, because, it goes back to is this a hobby or a business? If you're going to run it like a hobby and you do it when you have time and you kind of fit it into your schedule and, I'm really tired tonight, I don't want to go out and do this. Well, guess what? Your business is not going to be successful. So you need to have a time and a plan. And there's a few pieces that go into that, right, Jackie?
Well, absolutely. I mean, for me, the number one is looking at what you have in your life already, and then time blocking, and set aside some time that you're going to do this. Because if you have a job and a family and, maybe even some hobbies, maybe you play basketball on Thursday night or something, you need to put all that in the calendar and look and say, do I have the time? Where do I have the time? And then purposely schedule time with yourself that you're doing your business. Because if you don't, all of a sudden a week went by.
Right.
And then, holy cow, now 3 weeks have gone by and I haven't even looked at my real estate business, haven't even tried to send out any marketing. And it's just really hard to get that plane off the ground if you're not giving it any fuel.
Absolutely. And once you put it on the schedule, do it. Don't put it on the calendar just because it looks great. If 7 o'clock rolls around and this is the time you're going to do X and you're not doing that, well, guess what? It's not going to happen by itself. So you have to be very intentional with the times you're going to do it. If it means even you got to get out of the house or go to a separate room and work on your business or whatever the case may be, whatever you can get yourself in that mindset for that time you've blocked to do the task, do it. Because the people that take action and are intentional in what they're doing, Jackie, these are the people that we see are the most successful.
Absolutely.
It's what's driven us in our business, right? That's how we've gotten ourselves off the ground. It wasn't just by automatically people knowing who we are and calling us. I mean, we had to set some of the groundwork in place in order to be able to have, the success we've had in today's world. And go ahead.
Well, it is really difficult to be self-employed, and that's essentially what a real estate business is. It's self-employment. Rentals are one thing, and of course that demand will come in when a tenant needs something or whatever. But, if you're out there marketing to find properties at a good deal for whatever purpose, it's just really hard to be self-employed. And so if you're used to having a job and someone telling you got to punch in by 9 and at 9:01 you're late and you don't get to take lunch until noon and you only get 35 minutes for that.
Right.
If you're used to that, you have to become your own boss now. And you have to say, listen, I told myself I was going to do this activity from 7 to 8 on Monday nights. Then from 7 to 8 on Monday, you better put your butt in the seat and do that thing, or get in your car and drive and go look for houses or whatever it is that you set aside in that time block. You better go do it. And so I do know that is probably the most difficult part. for anybody who's never owned their own business. But that's where you have to decide right now before you start the business, am I willing to do that, and can I be accountable to myself? And Dan, how are you going to get through it when you don't want to, or when you're having a hard time and you got a bunch of no's? What can you do to get past that?
Well,
What's the last thing we need?
The big thing is that when you got in, if you're just getting into real estate, why are you doing this? You have to have a why behind it. If it's just for a paycheck, that'll be fleeting and it'll be here today, gone tomorrow. Know why you're doing this. Maybe it's for just financial freedom. Maybe it's you want to spend more time with your family because you're working 70 hours a week. In regards that needs to be in front of your mind. So when that time rolls on the calendar and you're like, do I really want to do this? It gets your mindset back to that point in time where you're like, this is why I took that leap. And that allows you to push it through. And usually once you've done the task, it's not nearly as tough as you made it out to be. And you have that sense of accomplishment. And worst case scenario, your work's going to pay dividends in regards to planting seeds and getting the phone to ring to get a deal. So that's what helps you push through. So having a time and a plan, if you have that alone in real estate, along with other things that we said, that kind of makes it a nice bow on top of this package of the top 5 things that you need to be successful within the real estate world and business. So actually, one of the things we talked about, Jackie, is going to be coming up at this month's REIA, of just talking about business setup and kind of knowing some of those things. So we have a pretty cool guest coming on this upcoming Tuesday.
We have Kevin Eisman coming in from Epiphany Law.
Yes.
We have Kevin Eisman coming in from Epiphany Law in Appleton. And here's a guy who owns a whole bunch of rental property himself. He's been an attorney for several years. He's got more accolades than most of them out there, but he's also a landlord. So when you really look at it, he can do business planning, he can do estate planning. He's got an entire law firm behind him, but he also knows tenant law. So landlord-tenant law, and that's really important as well. So not only, what entities should you set up, if any, but how does it protect me and how doesn't it protect me? What are my, perceived realities that aren't true? And he's going to be in, and what's really awesome is you don't even have to pay him.
Right.
He's going to be there for Q&A. So, if you've got questions that are personal to your business or just even hypotheticals of, hey, I run into this with a tenant, that's like my biggest fear. What do I do? How does that work? That's an opportunity.
Yeah, I would get here early. I would only imagine this is going to be a great turnout because whenever we get these type of professionals at the REIA, it's very highly attended, and because people want to know, right? I mean, like Jackie said, it's free outside of if you're not a member to pay to come in. But yeah, you're going to get a lot of great information. You're going to walk away with a lot of information you can use for your business personally or just overall understanding of the real estate world. So whether you are brand new in real estate or a seasoned vet, this is definitely a meeting you do not want to miss. And you can find out more information by going to AppletonREIA.com to get all the deets, location, and if you're not a member already, the costs and stuff like that. But I highly recommend becoming a member because there's so many benefits, which we won't get into today because we've kind of blown your brain with the top 5 things. So until we talk next time, you guys stay active, go after today, do something today that can make a difference in the life of someone else. How about that? Whether it be real estate or whatever, maybe a little bit of motivation for you. But until we talk next time, you've been listening to the Appleton REIA podcast. I'm Dan Albarn. She's Jackie Conkle. Have a good one.
Thank you.